Okay, so here is the Dual Z upgrade kit from Skynet 3D Mods on eBay. It's $54.99 delivered. I know it's cost him £6 P&P to get it to me because it's on the front of the box. It's by a guy called Peter Matthew Robinson, who I'm sure many of you will know for his auto levelling system that he also sells. I've bought some items from him for my ANET A8, and I've also started buying things from him for my Cr-10 as well. These are exactly the same kits as you get direct from Japan, or should I say China. The proper Creality ones, as you can see on there, we get focus, you see, Creality 3D on the stepper motor. So it's a proper original kit that he obviously gets at bulk order price and then passes on to us. Got it within a couple of days, so that's good. It's the full kit there, including the infamous item that so many people seem to have trouble with when they buy their new Cr-10s and they get shipped over, and these have expanded and snapped and one thing or another. So we've got that, we've got the stepper motor, we've got the cables, of course, which need to go into the control box. We've got our bag of bits and pieces and nuts and bolts, and we've got the lead screw down there. Now I'll just show you, just for those of you that are interested. I'll just move these out of the way. I have checked this already. I didn't dare do this before I checked it myself, but you can see, just roll that backwards and forwards on my table. There's no wobble in that at all. It's clearly very straight. No bow in it. It's not out of shape in any way, shape or form, so that should be very helpful. I've also checked it. I've run it through here to check for burrs and sticking points the full length of the thread before I fitted it, just to make sure that there was no issue with that. And it's beautifully clean all the way down. The thread's perfect. Like I say, I think some people have mentioned that there's issues with the thread sometimes, but that's absolutely fine. So what we'll do is we'll I have a benchy which I have done on my machine using the original PLA that's come with the machine, which I'll just get for you now. It's not a particularly good benchy, in fairness. It's not come out very well. As you can see, the overhangs aren't particularly good. There's some over extrusion, you can see there. I'll do some close-up photographs which I'll add in with this video, but I thought rather than have a perfect benchy to start with, I would use this one, and I've changed none of the settings on the machine. It's the original one that I sliced using their original PLA. I've since been able to improve it a lot, but I'll use exactly the same file so we know that everything is exactly the same apart from the dual lead screw, and we'll just see if it makes any difference to the quality. If it improves it at all, whether it changes how noisy it is, I'll be able to tell you that. But we'll go through installation because there is no installation document with the kit. So we'll just go for it and we'll see how we get on. So I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy what they've got on this side, just have a little look and notice the first thing is that we will need to trim back this infill, this orange plastic, so we get it to sit flat there onto the metalwork, and then we can just see basically how straightforward it's put together. So I'll just copy that across to this side with the parts that are provided in the kit, and the theory being that it'll be fairly straightforward. So we'll bring the kit over and we'll make a start. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is just offer up the motor to the bottom corner like this, and that'll give me an idea of roughly how much I have to cut off this wonderful orange piece of plastic. So we'll just mark this with a pen at both sides like that. So I now know how much I'm going to have to chop back to allow it to sit. So we'll just peel those out. I've never done these before, so they just come out fairly easily. So we'll just chop these back with a pair of scissors or a knife, depending on what I have to hand, and we'll then look at how that sits. So that's going to sit on there like that, and then if we just sort of check roughly, yeah, they're going to be alright like that, aren't they? Okay, so I'm just going to use actually a pair of the side cutters, which I'm sure you've all got a million bajillion of now from your printer kits and your little screwdriver sets and everything else that seem to come with a pair these days. So we'll just snip through there. We'll do the same on this one. And what I'll do is I won't actually reinstall those until we've got the motor mounted, so we can be certain that we've got it right. But they're easy enough to trim back. But that just means we can fit those back in when we've done. So the next thing to do is to look in the kit and find the yellow mounting bracket, which is like what's on the other side. Okay, so now we've got the stepper motor. I'm leaving the orientation exactly the same as the one is on the other side, so the cable comes out of the back. And what I can see is that this yellow part with these screws will sit straight into those. Now this is a 2mm Allen head fitting, so we'll just screw those in like so. I think it's probably easier to do it this way than mount the bracket first and then try and screw it in, because now we know we've got it sat nice and central. Now we've got these special nuts that they all seem to like going in these machines with the grooves, so we'll just turn those like that and we'll offer that up. Now this is a 2.5mm hex head or Allen head fitting. You just need to make sure that it's locked in place behind, so when you tighten up they do actually tighten. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to use my pen and just make sure that they're actually in the right position. So I'm just pushing them round so we know they're going to grab the rail when I tighten up. So they're like that, so they're now flat. Just see if I can get you in so you can see those. I very much doubt it. Let me just get you a little bit more light on. See if that will help. Just bear with me. There we are, look. You can see that there's a flap now. So when we do tighten them up, they will actually grip rather than just popping out. Because we don't want that, do we? Okay, so like I say, these are 2.5mm Allen head or hex head. So we'll just screw those two in like that. So that's the motor mounted. Can't tell whether it's perfectly flat to the metalwork. It does actually seem to be sitting slightly angled. Let me see if I can take this off the mount and just show you that. We might just need to make a slight alteration to get that absolutely flat, because at the moment, if we can get it to focus, that appears to me to be ever so slightly raised at the back. So what I'll do is I'll just have a moment and just see if I can maybe work that so it sits totally level. So what we'll do is, I think probably the best idea is to actually loosen these two that I've just tightened up ever so slightly, and what we'll do is we'll raise it like that. Now you see that's the issue, is the minute I tighten those, it is actually pulling it backwards. So in effect, what it's doing is it's causing the motor, this side of the motor, to lift as it's pulling this part back to the extruded frame. So at that point I've got it now, it appears to be fairly level. What I will try and do, see if we can make some more little alterations while we're here, because I'm sure this is something you'll come across. What I want to do really is try and make sure that that shaft is totally perpendicular, and it won't be if the top's pulled in more than the bottom. So what I've done is I've actually loosened those two other screw heads off, and now what I'll do is I'll tighten these two again, like so. I'm just applying a bit of pressure there just to try and hold its shape. Now if I look down here, you can't see, but I'm looking down here, and that is now a lot better. That's a lot more flat because I've got that bit of play on those. So what I'll do now is, now that I know I've got these tight, I will now tighten these two up, and hopefully it'll settle itself at a level point rather than being lifted up at a silly angle. Now I'm sure there's other videos on YouTube which will explain all this, but I've looked at nothing. Haven't done any research at all in fitting this. I just thought, how difficult can it be? Which of course are famous last words. So I thought, well, let's just try. So now if we look down there, excuse all the dust and the fluff, but I don't live in a clean room, and I wouldn't want you to think for one moment that I did. I'm sure I'm filthier than most of you with leaving bits of plastic and swarf lying about from my earlier prints, but that is how I am, bare bones and all. So that's what you see. So we've got that fitted now, and that appears to be flush and level. So having got the adapter plate to hand and just offering it up to this side, you can see that basically it lines up with the three wheels that are on here and the bolts that are through. Now looking at the other side, there's a spacer that brings it away. So what must happen is you have these longer bolts which we will put through there like that, and then we will take this nut off and we will fit a spacer there like that. Then the plate will go on like that, and then that nut will then go onto the end of there, thus extending it all and bringing that plate into alignment. So that's what we will do now. Okay, so what I've actually found is that although these two are as described, this third one round the corner here is actually, the head of it is in the back of this T extruded piece of metal. So I think what I'm going to have to do, and I'm sure you're all screaming at me now saying no, don't do it, don't do it, is actually remove these two here and actually slide this out, which is the adjustment. It holds the belt on for the Z-axis. Well, it's not the Z-axis though, is it? It's the Y-axis. Anyway, that holds this mount on, so we can actually lift this out of the way, and then we undo those two screws which are there and there, which again have got T-nuts on the back of them, and then I'll be able to slide the whole of this section out just to get to that bolt. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. So I'm sure there's loads of people saying no, don't do it, don't do it, there must be an easier way. I can't see one. Like I say, I'm not going to look in any online stuff. I'm just going to go for it and see how we get on. So these are 3mm, these two. So the theory is, if I can get these to loosen up a little, like so, it'll then loosen the tension on the belt. There's an awful lot of tension on there. That will then lose the tension on the belt, like so, which means I'll be able to, oh, now that's done it, look. There we go, that was easy. So we'll move that out of the way. I'll just lift the belt off to one side. which now means I can come back round here and I can have a go at loosening that one off. Now I suppose if I was really clever, I might just get away. Not quite sure. I'm thinking on my feet here, which probably isn't the best thing in the world. Now that piece of extrusion there, I think I've gone too far and I've pulled the nut off. No, the nut is actually still on. But that extruded bar has got some play in it. Now my issue is I don't want to bend that, trying to get this lot round it. So do I actually undo these two and take them out? I think that might be the answer. If I actually loosen these two off, I'll just get my little handy little spanner that comes with the kit, and we'll actually see, this is where it could all go very wrong very quickly. But this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to play it. Because these have got to come off anyway. We know that because we've got to put the longer bolts in. So we'll remove that one. And we'll remove this one. I've certainly never had issues with bolts being loose coming from the factory. I know some people have had to go around and tighten things up. But I'll tell you now, on mine, this printer, there's certainly nothing been loose. I did check everything, of course, when I put the machine together, but taking these things apart now, anything that's under tension seems to have plenty of torque. So that can only be a good thing. Now that's made all this loose. Now I'm wondering if I put the spanner on the concentric part of that and undo that, I can then take the wheel off, which will allow me to slide it out, because I really don't want to put this extruded bar here under any pressure. So let me just nip and get another spanner. Oh, it's a bit rocky, sorry everybody, hope you're not getting seasick. So here's another little spanner, which of course before I came back I didn't check it was the right size, and of course it isn't. So we'll put that one onto there, which then means this one will fit on here. There we go. And we'll just, now that's turning the whole thing, so that's not going to work. So guys, what's the answer? Do I just wind this out until the T-nut drops off the back? Do we think? Do we just keep going until that drops out? Because I don't want to put any sideways pressure on that trying to release that wheel, do I? Can't really see, can you? I'm sorry. Blooming amateurs, eh? Let's see if I can just bring you around to where we are. This is the problem. Yes, I know I could go online and I'd have the answer in 30 seconds, but where's the fun in that? Eh? The enjoyment is actually the guesswork, the fiddling. Is this where I realise now that this is just threaded onto there? If I actually keep winding it, it'll just unscrew. It can't be. No, there must be a head behind it. So I'll pick my spanner up off the floor where I dropped it. I shall reposition the camera for you. So with kind of there, that's kind of where we are at the moment. We're fairly loose. I don't want to take those out of there because, oh no, let's go for it. As they say, full steam ahead and bugger the icebergs. So we'll unscrew that one out of there. And we'll unscrew the one out of the other side. Like that. So I've left those nuts in place. And that's that out. So this is what we were dealing with, was getting to that. And there was no way to get to that without dismantling it to that degree. So what we'll do is now quickly, while I'm feeling like a hero, we'll swap that bolt over. So I think it's just a case of spanner onto one side, and wherever I've put my screwdriver, which is a very good question, onto the other. There it is, hiding under there. Look, you could all see it. You clearly weren't shouting loud enough because I couldn't hear you. So we'll unscrew that. So this has gone from being a very straightforward instructional video, ha ha ha, to being a let's see what a fool we can make of ourselves video. So I'm going to try and take that bolt out of there without losing my grip on everything else. But I don't think this is going to work. I think we're going to have an accident in a minute. I'm just putting the spring washer onto the longer bolt with one hand while holding all the rest in the other hand, which I've managed to do. And then I don't even know where the orange shot. And then I'm going to put that back through, which is the concentric nut. And then I want it through the wheel, like that. So that's that, all back on. Now of course at this stage we have to remember that we now need a spacer on here, like that. So then when we've got it back together, we can fit the other metal plate on, like that. So that looks like it's going to work. So what we'll do now is, ever so carefully. Now I need to show you this, just to show that I'm not being a complete idiot with what I did. If we come around and have a look, hopefully you can see that, get that to focus. Get that to focus. Where that bolt was, just let me get my light on it again. That always seems to help getting the focus to focus. You see that? That's actually sort of been milled out to recess the head of the bolt. So clearly we were doing the right thing there, because that's where that sits and there's no way of getting at it from anywhere else. So we know that was a good move. So that's good. I haven't messed up entirely. Right, back on the tripod. Now, while I was putting it back on the tripod, I had another moment of inspiration. As this stands at the moment, if I put this back on, I'm not going to be able to tighten up the nut that goes on after the plate because I can't get to this bolt. So what I'm going to have to do is, I'm actually going to have to start putting this outside plate on. Just this one, at this point, I think we can get away with. So I've actually got those together like that, and then put the bolt through there and tighten that up, because I won't be able to do that once I've put it back on, because I won't be able to get to the thing there, will I? So well done everybody who was shouting that at me. I heard you clearly. So we'll bob that nut back on, and we will tighten it up. Can anybody remember how tight it was? No, neither can I. What should we go with? Fairly. So we'll just tighten that up like so. I'm sure it was fairly tight, it must have been. I'll just make sure though, before we go any further, that it will let me turn the concentric nut, which it will. So that's good to go, I think. So what we'll do now is we'll place this back through, hoping upon hoping that those T-nuts haven't moved too far from their original position, so I can actually get those pieces bolted back in. So we need to find the short screws, which are these ones that I took out with these T-nuts, and hope and pray, everybody, that we can get these lined back up. So I'm going for the furthest away one that you can't see first, because of course that makes for good television. and that has actually got a grip. Now the issue is that I can't get my screwdriver in because of where it is, so I'm going to have to get the right size Allen key now with a long reach on it so I can actually get in to tighten that. Right, so that took some finding, but there it is. So I'll just see if I can pull you around so you can see where I'm going with this. So I've got to go through that hole there, which allows me to get to the nut like that, which allows me to give it a tighten. Now I'm not going to tighten it all the way just yet, because I've got to try and get this one now and hope that I can get that lined up with the concentric nut, or the T-nut even, sorry, that's on the inside of the extrusion. So we'll put that one in and see how we get on. So this is going to take a little bit of fiddly cleverness. Not quite sure how this is going to work, but we'll see. If I can get that to sit onto there and then line it up with the hole like so, and just hope we can get that nut to play ball, because at the moment it isn't doing. I might need just to get in there with something and just give it a little bit of a wiggle. Oh, I tell you what's wrong, I haven't got it sat square. That's the issue we're having, which you'll see in a moment. So I'll just put that back in like that and line that hole up. Right, there we go, and that's actually gripped. You can't see it, but I can see that it's grabbed, so that's good. So now we've got that on like that, and we'll give that one a bit more of a tighten too. I've clearly got something wrong there because I can't see what I'm doing. I don't think that's caught the nut, because that is moving. No, I've missed it. Oh, nightmare. Jump cut. Right, so there we go, got that in now. I just had to put my Allen key in and just give it a wiggle to get the T-nut lined up so I could then put the bolt on and tighten it up, but that's now done. So I think before I go any further, I'm going to put this pulley back on with the belt, because I want that off for as little time as possible, really. Now then, is there going to be an easy way of getting this back on? Come on, I can hear you all shouting again. It came off, so it'll go back on, won't it? But it's just, do I slide it in from the end? I think that's probably the best way, is to put those, get those T-nuts in, trying to keep them the right way on, which I don't want to do. I want to try and be difficult. Petulant children. That's one in. Come on, you little swine. That's two in. Now then, am I going to be able to get the belt from round the back to round the front without doing any damage or getting it twisted too much? Stop laughing, you lot. It's easy when you're watching, not so easy when you're here. So there we go, that's got the belt back on. So I'll tension that back up. Get my trusty screwdriver. Now this was not under a massive amount of tension, but I don't want it to be loose either. So I'm just I'm sure yet again there's all sorts of ways and means of making sure that's right, but that's certainly not, it doesn't feel loose. I'll just check it on the motor at the other end. It could be a little bit on the loose side. I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll just put it under a bit of tension while I tighten it up. just so. I think probably the best bet if we just loosen those off a tad. That's more than a tad. Loosen those off a tad, and I'll just give it a little bit. Just putting a bit of pressure on it, just leveraging like that. Not too much, just a bit to put a bit of tension on it. Because we don't want floppy belts, do we? Because I think floppy belts spells problems, and we don't want problems. So that's that on. That seems to be a better tension. I'm happy with that, I think. So we've just got those two tightened back up. So next stage, am I doing alright, lads? Or am I making a complete fool of myself? You know, what have I forgotten to do? Nothing so far, they say. So the next one then, remember how these were. We had the bolt, the spacer, the wheel. Set that into the track. Just work that. Ooh, don't take it too far, because I've got to get my other spacer on now, haven't I? Wherever I've put that. There we go, other spacer. Now again, I'm sure there's an easy way of doing this that I haven't managed to work out. But we'll go like that, because I can see that working. And then we'll just spin that through. And make sure that lines up with the hole on the other side. And that should come through like that. And then that just has that nut on. Ooh, sorry guys. So that's that on. So we'll do the same on the other side. Same on this top one here, and then we'll go through into putting the lead screw on. Right, so that's the other one on now. I was saving you the boredom of watching me do that. So now it's time to insert the lead screw. So now we will feed screw down like so. I'll actually have that the right way up, it would possibly help. Down we go. Now what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to make sure it goes right the way down until it touches the top of the stepper motor. Now the reason for that is, you can see it's actually moving the gantry a bit there. The reason for that is that we need to work out how to get the top piece on. So now we've got that sat right to the bottom, we'll then whoop up to the top. I'll take your hands free for this bit. Excuse me for any shake or wobble. So we're sat like that at the moment. So what we're going to do is, if you'll focus please camera, there we go. Make sure we get that the same way up, and then we just sit that down onto the top of the lead screw, and then we'll just flick, oh sorry you couldn't see that, that down to the top of the lead screw, and then we'll just flick those two nuts round so they go in. That one's facing the right way already, so we'll do that. Those T-nuts are in. So now we'll just make sure that sits flush like that. And like that. And then we'll tighten those 2 T-nuts up that are in the back of there. And then we know we're getting good to go. So that's those 2 in. You'll notice I've got the lead screw proud of the top. The reason for that is it now means that I can adjust this bottom section down here correctly, because what you need to do, you need to make sure that this lead screw isn't touching the top of the stepper. There's got to be a gap, otherwise this part here, which is what flexes, which is why it's split like that, so it can flex like that. If that lead screw there is touching the top of the stepper motor, there's no room for it to flex. So what you have to make sure is that there is a gap between those two before you go any further. So there needs to be a gap between that the bottom of this lead screw and the top of that stepper motor, so this can actually do its job, because otherwise if it's pushed all the way down, there's no point it really being there. You might as well just have it fixed directly, because the whole point is it's helping to dampen. So we'll just check that. So at this point, because I can see there's movement there, I know that there's a gap between the two. So what we'll do is now we'll just tighten up these Allen key bolts, not right down at the bottom like that, we'll bring it to about there. So then we know we've got a little bit of give in it, and we'll tighten those up, and then we'll level the gantry and make sure that we've got both sides level before we go any further. So there you go, that's the 4 Allen bolts tightened up in there, and that was using, that's a 2mm. So we've got those tight, and I've made sure that this gap at the bottom here is the same as the one on the other side, so we can be fairly certain that we've got it right. I'll show you how to make sure these heights are the same. Basically all you do, but we will go through it, is you measure from the base of there to the top of there, and then you make sure that the other side is the same. If it isn't the same, all you do is you carefully turn the screw. As you can see, that's going up and down independently, and you just carefully turn that until both sides of the gantry are at the same height off the bed here. Then you know that when it starts to lift, go up and down, it's doing them both at the same time, and it keeps you perpendicular across this here, which means you've got a straight lift up and down. So that's the worst of it over. I know it was very long-winded and there was lots of mistakes and stuff, but you know, this is what happens. So what we'll do now is we'll get on with the wiring. We'll get that plugged in, and then we'll feed that round and we'll plug it into the box, and then we'll power it up and see what happens. Okay, so we've got the stepper motor cable here, which has got a join in it there. So clearly I've got a long end here which will plug into the back here, and then that will run along, and the other side of it will go into the back of there, and then this long section here we'll then take into the back of the control box and plug it in where the original cable was. Now also in the kit you get another Z stop sensor cable, of course. Now the thing with this is I don't actually need this because my Z stop isn't in use anymore, because I now have auto bed leveling using a sensor. So I won't actually need to fit this cable. This cable I can actually forget about. But we do come with some of this lovely stuff to put over the cables, so I'll fight my way through feeding the cables through there. You don't need to watch that. I'll get that done, and then we'll come back and we'll plug in, route the cable and get it in the back of the control box. Well, that didn't take as long as expected. That was fairly painless, but like I say, I'm only feeding the one cable through because I don't need the Z stop. So this appears to be just as simple, he says, not being able to do it. Right, now, why am I being an idiot all of a sudden? that's the wrong plug. That's why. You see, this is why it's a warts and all job, because everybody can make mistakes, including me. So that end fits into there like that, and then we'll just route that around the back of that stepper motor, and then we'll pull that one out and we'll put that one in like so. So that's those two Z motors connected together, and then this, we will now open the control box, pull the old one out, bob this one in, and we'll go to the next stage from there. I won't show you taking the bottom off the control box. It's fairly simple and straightforward, and this has gone on for far long enough anyway. So we'll jump cut to the bottom of the box being open, and we'll just put this in and we'll go from there. So like I said, I'm not going to go through any unscrewing of this with you. You've basically got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws to take out of the bottom, and then there are 4 screws on the side there which you take out afterwards, which remove the power supply out of the bottom. Those 4 screws hold the power supply in place. So I'll take the screws off the bottom to take the bottom off, I'll take the 4 screws out to take the power supply out, and then we'll have a look at the plug inside. Right, so fairly simple and straightforward inside. Take no notice of this cable at the front here that's disconnected, because if you're paying attention you'll know what that is. That's my Z-axis stop end, which is disconnected here, because what I've actually got connected into the Z-axis stop end there is for the optical bed levelling sensor kit, which I also got from Pete. So that negates the use of that anyway. But if you've got a normal system, you'll need to swap that out on the board, and it is the Z-axis one. Excuse me. The Z-axis one, you can see in my box I've got the red and the black, so it's that one there. So it's the one nearest that green connector block, but that's the one that you'll have to pull the Z-axis stop end switch off and fit your new one to there, and then fit your new one to your Z-axis stop end that you fed through with that cable. Like I say, I don't need to do that. All I need to do is to come over this side and work out which one of these is the one for my motors. I don't know whether you can see, they are all labelled, and it's that one there on mine that says Z on it. So I'll pull that one out, I'll clip that, there's a cable tie there, we'll clip through that, we'll feed that cable out, we'll feed the new cable in through the back of the box, up, plug it into there, and then I'll just put a new cable tie onto there, and then we're just about ready to go. Put the box back together and just make sure we've got everything level and sorted and power on. Now I'm afraid from this point on you're not going to see much, because I've got terribly fat fingers, so they are just going to completely block everything that I'm actually doing, but I've talked you through what I'm doing, so you know what the situation is. So we're just going to remove that cable tie, and then we're going to go up here and find the one that's the Z-axis, which is that one, and we're going to remove that plug and feed it out through the back, and then we'll feed the new one in. Okay, so that's the new cable pulled through, and all I'll do is I'll plug that in. Like so. Make sure she's nice and firmly in. It's always a good idea while you're in here, just check all your other plugs and cables, just to make sure that everything's still nicely intact, because you have moved the power supply about, which might have loosened something off. But that's me basically put back together, and we're ready to test. Now, the inside of here, if you've got any of Pete's kits in the past, if you've got the auto bed levelling kit, you'll need to get this box apart to change the sensor cables for that, and to flash the board. So if you're going to buy both kits, it would be an idea to just do it all in one go. The only other thing I will mention is I undid a cable tie here, there, which I'm about to replace now. There is also one in the back corner there that you can't see because my power supply's in the way, but there's also one over there. I don't want people going, oh, he didn't warn me about that one, but there is one back there as well. So there's two that you've got to clip and replace just to keep your cable management as it should be. So I'll get those done. We'll get the box back together and we'll check the gantry and make sure it's level, and then we'll power it up. Right, so the next important thing that you must do before you turn your machine on, now you've got it all back together, is to make sure that we have this bar level across both sides. Now you can use a tape measure, steel rule. People have printed out pieces that fit between here and here so you get the same height. I just use my micrometer, and all I do is I put it in and I wind it up this end until it touches like that. Take a reading, take it over the other side, put it under. Now I can see there I've got a little bit of play there, so all you do is put it under and turn this lead screw at the back ever so carefully. As long as you turn it the right way, it's always helpful. And you just do that, and you tilt, that slack's gone. So that's now like that. Now what you need to check, I'll actually stop that off at that. What you need to check is that this side hasn't moved because of the angle it was at. You might find that this is a bit tight now. You see, that's just a little bit on the tight side. So all we'll do is we'll wind this one up ever so slightly. So that's now level. And again, we've just got a little bit of play in there. Tiniest amount. There we go. So now we know that the distance from there to there and the distance from there to there is the same. So we know this is now flat and level. So when the motors kick in, they will both be winding it up perpendicular to each other without any issue. So the thing is now, I suppose, is to get some power on and see what happens. Now you'll have to excuse the noise, because on top of the fan noise of the power supply, I've also got a UPS down there. So we'll power that on first. We don't get massive power cuts around here, but we do, because we are in the country, we do tend to get very short-lived ones, maybe 5 or 6 seconds, but that's enough to ruin a print. So to have that there just saves me any more hassle. So we'll power up. Well, it's turned on, so that's a good start. Well, display's on, so that's another good start. So that tells me that my wiring's something like right. So what we'll do is we're going to go at this very carefully. So we're going to go to prepare. And we're not going to do anything massive first. We're going to go to move axis, and we're going to go to move Z, and I'm going to be a real chicken, and I'm going to move it 1 millimetre at a time to start with, just to make sure that both these motors are working the same direction. So I haven't got one going one way, one going the other, and that we're working to a level. So we're just going to keep taking it up. So that appears to be working. Both motors appear to be turning. Both screws are turning. What we'll do is we'll take it up to about there, and then I will get a measure and I will make sure that both sides have stayed level. So we'll get the micrometer in, whatever you wish to call it, slide rule thing, this thing that I use, and put it underneath. I'll bring it up till it touches on there, and then I'll lock it off so it can't move, and I'll take it over the other side and I'll slide it under there, and there is a slight bit of movement. I'll just come back and check this side again. You see, that's nigh on solid. This side we have just got a little bit of play still, not a lot. In fact, if I'm honest with you, it's a negligible amount, but because I'm on camera doing it, I'll alter that. But we actually need to turn the steppers off to do that, because at the moment, of course, the motors are running, so they're not going to let me do anything. So disable the steppers, just get that back in. Get that till it's not moving again, like that. That's fairly good, and then we'll do that this side. And yeah, so that's fairly level again. So I'll now do another quick test. I've seen people with spirit levels across the top here, and trying to do it that way. That's all well and good, as long as your machine is on a flat surface and a level surface, and you can guarantee it. I can't guarantee it because I put it on this piece of polystyrene to keep the noise level down. But some people I've seen with spirit levels on there, but I don't trust that. I always work from that point to that point, and that point to that point. So we'll just do a quick stepper control again. So we'll move axis, we'll move Z axis, we'll move it 1mm, and we'll move it down like so. And we'll stop it there, and we'll just do one final check. So we'll go under there, take it out, put it under there, and that's it. It's got it. That's absolutely solid. So we now know we're level through. So the next thing to do is to load up my benchy and give it a go and see if we can see any difference between the one I did and the new one. I don't expect to see much, because it's going to make a greater difference, I would imagine, on bigger prints, you know, larger surface areas. With a small print like the benchy boat, I don't see it doing a massive amount of difference, but we'll have a look. I'm using the same PLA as I did for the first one. I've not even taken it out, I've left it all in while we've been doing this. So I'll just fire up Octoprint again, whack it on, get it printing, and I'll show you the results when I'm done.